j'arrive maar j'ouvre God my edge. Viv ook gaan. Uw gek weet je weer pak edge. Noemt je naam. Komt je rang van edge. Kanku. Koko kwe. Kab dat nugele even pok. Doet van deracho.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Oakcast, your island gateway to all things geek. I'm your host tonight, Calum MacDhòmhnail, and, well, you know this man above me on the screen, Faunch. You know that there's languages of Gaelic afoot when he's on, so give me a hashi, Faunch.
Gyma, dwi'n mynd how hyn.
Oh, how are you? So tonight is, just in advance, half of this show will be done in English, and the second half will be done as a Gaelic. So tonight, very special guest, language educator. We became famous on YouTube amongst the Gaelic community, also through doing Gaelic through a bit of a different method than what we're used to, and also using Geek material. So please welcome to the show from Gaelic with Jason. Yep, that's the name of the chat. Jason Bond. Fescar Falchige Oakcast.
Modern time, yeah.
So I think the obvious question probably, I know when I mentioned this to my parents and all that, obviously you're American, so how on earth did you discover Gaelic, and what was that light bulb moment where you decided I want to learn this language?
This is the question that always gets me a free pint in the pub every single time, because everyone asks, how are you enjoying your holiday? And I used to say, I'll tell you in October when we have school holidays, you know. But it's a long and winding road, one completely unexpected. I first came in touch with, I guess, more Scottish history through pretty broad doors, so to speak. Like, I love Braveheart in high school. I mean, it is a start. It is a very fanciful start, but there's something there that maybe kind of catches your interest and draws you deeper. So I've always been interested in history, and especially Scotland and Ireland. And something in Braveheart was just like so fascinating, such a good story, and I wanted to learn more. And that's when I started to investigate more. That's when I found that there is actually the Gaelic language. And I came across Runrig on YouTube, the early days of YouTube. And I just remember being blown away, like, this is amazing. You know, I love trad music, Irish and Scottish trad, but to hear the song was a whole nother level and something very special. And that, I feel, it touched something deeper in me. Although, to be honest, these days I feel it awakened, whatever the stupid English word is, you know, something woke up in me. And I definitely feel that these days, that there was something just deep in me that wanted to wake up to this culture, this language. And so I just came across Runrig. I loved it, listened to more Runrig. And then when I decided to go for university studies, I wanted to study Scottish and Irish, essentially Gaelic literature and culture and history. And I was aiming to be a professor, interested in the language, but I was more interested in the academia side. And part of my studies was taking a year of either Scottish or Irish Gaelic. And because I was in Nova Scotia, I thought Scottish Gaelic would allow me to really connect with the locals and the local area, the local history. Oh boy, did it ever. And our teacher, she would sing to us and just tell us these little anecdotes. She's from Lewis herself, she is.
All right.
And she just have these wonderful little bits and pieces to share with us from a Gael. And I just, more. I had to have more Gaelic. So I kind of shifted my focus to language. Took every single course I could, every single history course. We had film series in the Celtic department there, Welsh films as well. You know, we watched Seach, which was amazing because it combined two of my favorite things, of stories, and then like the Gaelic in the landscape too. So I just fell very, very deeply in love with Gaelic, and something awoke in me. I needed more. I'm going to do more. There was no question that this was something important to my life that I was going to follow. And I just, got stuck in and didn't let go, and I still haven't let go. That's the short answer.
How do you come in there?
I'm wondering, because we're soon going to get talking a bit more in more detail about your work, on your YouTube channel and Gaelic for Geeks and all that. And I was wondering, because you're talking about Braveheart and these sort of things, it's kind of a lot of learners, I noticed, you have a way in, right? It will be music for some, it will be like TV or something for others. Do your love of fantasy, because I notice you seem to like The Witcher a lot, and I assume you like other things than The Witcher. Does your love of fantasy and your love of Gaelic, do they relate to each other? And did fantasy and stories, as you were just mentioning, did they have an impact on your own learning process?
Absolutely. Stories are really what kept me going, because if anyone who's learned Gaelic, analyzing it and trying to get the mind around lenition and everything like that, it can be very hard going. And if you're not minded like that, it can be just soul destroying sometimes. It can be just, you want it so bad, and it just feels so out of reach because it's so foreign, because you're rewiring your brain. That's how it felt for me. I was rewiring my brain for a completely different perspective, for the Celtic perspective on life and way of expression. So for me, stories really kept my my Mishnioch alive, like really kept that fire going. I love all those old stories about like Kelpies and the Urishk and all these critters and all these things going on in the world that just made it feel more than just, I don't know, paying bills and buying petrol and going to the grocery store. I love folklore. I love mythology. And once I got to a point where I could use those kinds of stories in an adapted form to boost my own Gaelic, things took off even more. And that definitely informed my own teaching and just how good a story can be as a learning resource, and how compelling a story can be, even if we have no interest in a Kelpie, right, in a water horse or something like that. I bet you someone would sit down and kind of listen and think, I want to know how this ends. Maybe they might not care terribly afterwards, but I think we all want to hear stories. And if we can use stories to learn Gaelic more enjoyably, more smoothly, more deeply, I'm all for it. Yeah.
That's kind of a neat transition into talking a bit about your work then, because you have a YouTube channel, Gaelic with Jason. People can go check it out. And in it, one of your approach is, you're not telling people, okay, today we learn to say ha, mi, kuma, or whatever. You actually tell a story, right? And one of the things I noticed in many of your videos, you either use a Witcher, which is quite interesting in itself because it's Slavic mythology and everything. So you're like kind of freely just going for this series you love. And others, you use traditional stories. For instance, you had an episode around Samhain that approach, like Halloween, for people who don't know. That approach is a traditional tale around it. What made you decide when you created your channel and you wanted to share this love of Gaelic, what made you decide to go for that method rather than more traditional approaches to teaching?
Excellent. I could talk for hours on this.
That's you're invited you to talk, so go for it, pal.
Let's see. When I trained, after I did my Celtic Studies degree, I wanted to keep going with Gaelic, and I wanted to share it with others. I really loved it. I wanted other people to really love it, to wake up to the importance of this language, to the beauty in it, to how it made life much richer. So I did train as a teacher. I did a 2-year teaching degree in Nova Scotia as well. And I did my practice teaching in pretty traditional areas, and that was fine. It was good practice, good learning. And that's what I did when I got my first teaching job on the Isle of Islay. So I was teaching in the high school there, teaching both Gaelic as a foreign language in a way, and then also Gaelic medium. And I was going with, what others recommended and what others were doing, and that was okay. It was similar to what I had learned myself. So, it's familiar to a degree. And it seems like the need is always, how can I make this more fun? And I'm thinking about it as to some folk, analysis and categorization and just getting into the mechanics of language is fun. And it's become fun for me. It wasn't to begin with, to be honest. It was a big struggle. And I almost gave up and learned Icelandic instead because I thought it'd be easier. Glad I didn't. I'm glad I didn't. That was my first year with Gaelic. Like, what have I gotten into? So I switched to, I was looking at different teaching methodologies, and I came across TPR, which is total physical response. It's kind of like Simon Says, right? It would be an activity usually, but then it, as a methodology, piqued my interest. And then there's a way of telling stories in just animated ways, having a sort of sign language in a way to make sure everything is being clear, having chance, and then it just grew from what this storytelling method could be. Involving the students too. It's not, you're not telling them the story. They're helping create it, create characters, locations, things that they find fun. And usually stories are pretty darn wacky. One of my best stories I remember was with my S1 class. It was the really young ones, first starting out in high school. And we had a character who was a spider named Teeny Tony, and he lived in a lemon. And the big struggle of his life is he wanted to move to a new house, so he ended up moving to a slightly bigger lemon. I mean, wacky story, kind of funny. Maybe it's not great literature, but it was fun. It was darn fun, and it was involving everyone. Of course, S1 senses of humor, it's always kind of delightful because they love to play and get creative. So I found creating stories of my classes engage them in ways that I wish I had engaged with. In language study previously, I learned German. I learned a bit of French, through school. I lived in Germany, and I learned basically just by being there as well. So there was this level of engagement through story that I loved. And also for me as a teacher, this felt so authentic because I love the stories myself. I love being creative, being wacky, kind of playful with the language, having fun and, laughing, and not just at ourselves because, oh, I forgot lenition again, or, oh, that's a feminine noun. That's right, because it ends in AG. Oh, well, maybe I'll get it next time. But, using the language to create humor, to create genuine, heartfelt experience and connective experience with others. Like, we made this story together, and we can read it. And you can probably tell it to someone else after a bit of, practicing and a bit of reading it through it again to remind yourself. So to me, it followed the principles of accelerated learning, which is a methodology in itself. And my students were using Gaelic. My young ones were they were very keen. I remember in the co-op going, pick up my vegetables, after school, just getting some things for dinner. One of my students comes over and speaks old Gaelic to me. I mean, nothing earth-shaking. It's not reciting poetry, but it was an authentic expression. They wanted to communicate with me, and they wanted to do it in Gaelic. And that is priceless. That is exactly what I feel the Gaelic community needs, is young people, especially, who want to use it to express themselves.
Yeah.
And so I find the storytelling method is so powerful in that way because you do incorporate others' voices. And in my channel, it's just me talking to the camera. So there's only so much, connection with others or ideas from others one can bring in. But even then, I'm kind of having just fun with myself, just enjoying the story and seeing where it goes and drawing the pictures and, treating it like a big comic book and just enjoying a bit of Gaelic, and whoever's along for the ride is along for the ride too. Just having fun with it and making it clear so that even if you're not, 100%, invested in this story, you're gaining something. Even my students who really didn't care much about Gaelic, they could ask for, like a brain break game in Gaelic. They could still use it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's just interesting what you say, because that's what, when I spoke to you a few months ago, was it, when I interviewed, what you were saying about role-playing games, that's pretty much the function you're having there, isn't it?
Oh, I definitely, it's like, we're like talking a bit just before the show started to be recorded about, how there is that need for interaction, for deeper connection, but also for people who start being able to actually converse in Gaelic to get to the next level. And I noticed with friends a few years back, we started playing, Dungeons and Dragons in Gaelic. And the first few sessions are a bit wacky because they're like, oh, how the heck do I say, okay, I swing my sword at the goblin? But once you get the words and all that, you start creating more complex things, and you start actually, you do things that you would never do in Gaelic, probably in real life, like, a heist or whatever. You have to prepare a heist in Gaelic. And it's a sort of thing that actually, beyond knowing the vocabulary, it gets you to use the language in a new context. And I guess that's the thing, we're talking about TV and stuff like that. When you have a language like English or French, you get this exposure, right? You're exposed to Ocean 11, or you're exposed to Braveheart. You're exposed to all that stuff. So kids who have never worn a chainmail in their life still know what a chainmail is. They've never set foot in a spaceship, but they know what a spaceship is. But in an endangered language like Gaelic, you don't have all this context. this external context that traditionally stories would tell you, right? Many elders that you talk to, they've never held a sword in their life, but they will tell you about Fionn McCool. And to tell you about Fionn McCool, they need to have the vocabulary for weaponry and medieval equipment and siege weapons and these sort of things. They don't have it much these days anymore, but it's the stories have this power to also bring you beyond your daily life, and definitely role-playing games is that, but storytelling in a traditional setting is as well, definitely. I noticed, is there a question in the chat?
Yeah, there's a comment that's you've seen it on the screen
right.
there.
So what is it? Since you teach Gaelic through The Witcher, I was wondering how much you know about Slavic mythology itself. Do you have a favorite myth or story from it? Well, let's go for that.
Sure. And actually, can I just comment really quick on what you just said, Frank? I agree that role-playing games, while not maybe some of the terminology is not immediately useful to our daily lives, it still gives us useful things. And I would say that we can always, everything is transferable in a story. Maybe not some of the fine details, the story details, specific terminology, but there are absolutely things we can bring into everyday conversation. And that's, I feel, a really powerful part of stories, the high frequency element to it. All right, Slavic mythology. I'm afraid I don't know much about Slavic mythology except what I've heard of or experienced through The Witcher. I do have a student, one of my regular students lives in Prague, and for a while we were talking about folkloric creatures. So I'm a big fan of Urishks. For some reason, I just think they're so cool. So, found some Urishk stories and Kelpie stories, sending them to her. And then she wrote up some stories about the Votnik, about this kind of water spirit, kind of like an Urishk in itself. A little fellow who's dressed in old-time clothes, with a fishing rod, a pipe, and that kind of thing. So my knowledge of Slavic mythology is minimal. Usually, it's pretty much from The Witcher and then the Votnik as well. But I'm always open to a good story. I love learning stories from other cultures, especially cultures I'm not very familiar with, because then it's just this fresh perspective that you gain. I really love that. One of the best horror stories I read. I don't know if they would be considered Slavic, but it was a Transylvanian horror story. It was a vampire story, but it was also a werewolf story at the same time. And there was this forest creature who became this man's wife, and she looked completely human, and she was very strong and very capable, but there were certain things he wasn't allowed to do. Of course, it happens. And then it turns out that she's like robbing the graves of people as a wolf and like eating hearts and things like that. I thought that's a whole nother level of werewolves. That's very interesting. And there's kind of a vampiric element to it too. So please, if you have recommendations for new stories, let me know.
I was quite curious because you've taught Gaelic in Scotland and you've now taught it abroad. Is there a different challenge like towards a Gaelic learner and like a foreign learner? Is there different challenges in teaching there?
Is there a different challenge? Yes, I would say that the Scots, even Scots who are not in Gaelic-speaking areas, they've still heard the sounds enough through their English, through different elements of being in Scotland, different ways of being in Scotland. They have a lot of the sounds, kind of the concepts. Whereas a learner like myself, I had to start with, at square one, and learn some of these sounds before I could even hear them within words. So I feel that folks in Scotland, especially Scots who are raised in Scotland, they do have a bit of an edge for the sound, even though they may never have spoken Gaelic a word in their life. They've heard things that are useful, within Scottish English and Scottish words that have come from Gaelic into Scottish English too. I think that's a very helpful edge, or just kind of a starting point for a learner. Also, Scottish learners tend to have more resources locally. As foreign learners, we got to go online, and it's so isolating. It's such a lonesome thing sometimes.
That leads into what I was going to ask you next. Like for these isolated foreign learners, like just say like that person in Prague that you mentioned, like what advice would you give to someone? Like if you could just for learning a language on your own when you don't really have access to native speakers.
What you're doing is very challenging. So you're very courageous, you're very brave. and you'll do it. You'll get there. Just because you're not in Scotland doesn't mean you can't do it. Just because no one around you speaks Gaelic doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you have to be a little creative. You have to be more, I think, driven. You have to really motivate yourself more because your environment is not offering you what others might have. And that's okay. In some ways, being kind of out of the Gaelic world, I feel offers a benefit in that maybe we see it more widely. Maybe we don't gain, I don't know, maybe we don't gain some biases. You know, we don't take up some biases or conditioning. I don't know if conditioning is the right word, but we can come at it with a completely fresh, open mind. And it takes time to fill that mind with Gaelic. But maybe there are certain aspects that we can appreciate because we're outsiders. And of course, we can learn to appreciate things from insiders, and maybe I think we will become insiders. So don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. You can do it. It's might be a lifetime journey, and it's one that's going to make your life much richer. Yeah.
Because I think for like a challenge that some Scottish learners will be, and I think you've encountered this yourself, is this internal Scottish, there's some negativity towards Gaelic. Like you've said yourself, you've had people say direct to your face, it should die. Like, so what's the advice you would give to a learner, like when they're maybe getting that from their social circle, like, why are you doing that? That useless language should die out. Like, what would be your advice for someone who's taken it up? Or even just for someone who has that mindset, is there any words you would, polite words you would say to maybe change their mind? Not the other kind of words.
Got some words for you there, don't I? Yeah, to someone who's encountering that, you know, it really can be disheartening and kind of heartbreaking in a way, even though we may not want to admit that. And it's okay because everyone's going to have their own opinion. I feel that doing something that's worth doing in our lives is worth doing. It's learning Gaelic, taking up Gaelic, deepening your fluency, connecting to something in it that just makes your soul sing, or just really makes you just so happy, is absolutely worth it. It doesn't matter that it doesn't make you a millionaire. It doesn't matter that it doesn't get you a big fancy house. There's so much more to life than our basic needs. We need them, but a life without things that are more than that is really, it's flat. And Gaelic adds this sense of I say the word magic because that's what it is for me, but the sense of magic, beauty, perspective, a way of seeing the world that just makes life so much richer and more enjoyable. So others will have their own opinions, absolutely, and that's up to them. They might change that, they might not, but you know, really connect with what it means to you, and don't let go of that. Don't ever let go of that. Don't let anyone take that away from you, even though it might feel like the wiser thing to do is to give up. Don't. To folk who have those opinions, you know, I get it, you know, like there's a lot of pressure in life. There's a lot of need for security and comfort and low stress, and taking on something that is kind of wacky and out there and maybe seems like this weird ancient thing that doesn't have relevance to today. You know, I get that can feel weird and we don't want to necessarily look weird to others. Yeah, I get that. And if it's not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea. That's fine. But don't ruin it for others, because it means the world to a lot of people. And the world is a better place because we're all in it, and because Gaelic is in it. That's my 2 cents.
Oh, that's good. Faunch? Yeah.
I don't know. It makes for a full pound, I'd say, at this stage. But yeah, no, it is quite interesting, and it is. I do agree. You know, it's like I always say to people when they're starting with Gaelic and they don't really know how far they want to go, because you know some people they just want to dabble. They're not interested in going far. I always tell people, no matter what language you learn, you will not regret it if you follow on that path. Nobody has learned a language to a good level and thought, I just shouldn't have, you know. I learned German fluently. I've been talking to Germans and actually I shouldn't have. Nobody ever says that, right? And I know that, you know, for me, it's these kind of moments. One of the anecdote in my journey that definitely counts as like, yeah, this is exactly why I'm here for. I remember doing some field work in Scalpe, collecting place names and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, this elder starts, I don't remember what prompted it, but it starts to teach me a spell to cure your cattle of the evil eye, right?
Cool.
Magic. He's like, no, this is how you have to perform it. So he's like explaining to me every single step of that magic spell. And I was sitting there like, this is the coolest thing ever. I have like a Gael teaching me magic. And then I left his house and I went to like one of the neighbors to do the same thing, collect place names. And all of a sudden that neighbor is like, but there is that spell against the evil eye. And here he goes teaching to me the spell and like, talking about how he saw it perform as a child. And at this moment where, you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, I learned Gaelic for many reasons, but this is it. This is the coolest thing ever. And if I didn't speak Gaelic, I wouldn't be sitting here with two different elders teaching me magic right now. And ultimately, that's what it's about. And anecdotes like that, when you learn a language, you will have by the bucket, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I find particularly when you're learning an endangered language, because people will connect to you differently, because they see value in what you're doing in a different fashion, you get even more of these things because people want to connect. If you learn French people will be happy about it. They will talk to you. But they assume that, yeah, sure, you're learning French. Like, a third of a billion people speak French, so you're learning French. What's a big deal? They might not go into that deep connection. But a native Gaelic speaker that has a learner come in and speak to them in Gaelic will want to engage way more. And you end up having these amazing experiences that you would never have had otherwise. So it's, yeah, you'll never regret it. That's for sure.
I second that for sure. And for me, I remember when I started being able to read maps, just like Google Maps, reading the Gaelic place names, all of a sudden everything opens up like, wait a minute, there's a story with those mountains. There's what's going on there. And it's just this richness. You connect with the land in a completely different way by having the language that was spoken on it. It's just, I think it's just this beautiful way to show respect to a culture, to a people, to an area, and they connect with it in a way that goes beyond the superficial. Yeah, it adds so much. Just I keep saying magic, for me that's what it is. It's a deep connection, that special connection that changes your life.
Okay, yep.
Definitely.
I think that's on a good note to let everyone know. The English section's just coming to, we're halfway there. So, Inish, Breen a Gaelic or Pounch to the Yuri Parker.
Ai, go tjar a hain, well, so bishin a dog Gaelic and ish. Agus a chiad root of a mir schon feinach root. A huv maragum bieg achen a Gaelic and Juni medach doi. Hoshi shule vi brin mun gosh a Braveheart is like it. Agus chanel Gaelic out. Nur a chai ilmug charoin a nos maragum bieg vi kur canan an elle. Chidach berle. A cha Gaelic ar a vi chinas chach go root an mora in ish ha Outlander go jara hain ha Gaelic a leo round. Ach goed ook, ha Gaelic reclunchin en an filmischen mar Centurion le Michael Fassbender agus The Eagle goed ook men goor steeds. Shin na krunig a wie se bring Gaelic aan.
Shake ha keinakam.
Ach hij fast karen avestog an is de reune ha filmuk an an albe gesonrischte ruden echkriol. Wij aan an Outlaw King is ruden machine goed ook. Ha Gaelic en nog an dariru gaan. Gaan li dunnen go kers sa burren. A cha iawn agus ha solios go de Gaelic a hinch. Smashini va mi wondrig. Havelu gen viach gevel sin tosh boy is a Gaelic agus is gaan niet chidach Iva in a Gaelic ach goed ook an wokjonsoch a hou heen er vi check is dunne machine. An daatjeshin a ha Gaelic is eutin as een doel fobloch, maar dat heb ik hier sa verla in the public eye.
Apper keist. Finne mi ra namviach. She rut gleva a haun gebeli a noch kug aan ze hulle. Wel, gaan jelle hulle kaal ach aan een moran. Snellein show. I guess aan een doi hai a jedevig. Gure rut prísio a hawn sa Gaelic, go bhfuil ari ire ho arsts sa hic canan an éile agus nam bheach sé bua a hawn sin gon checkas an bí. Agus stocha go bhfuil tuileadh chorman ann do luchtjónsachi a bhí a clíntin díoch bicar, díoch appers nó fachglan agus a smúintin, ruúr hen, pick me sin, Jévan a sin, like, stocha go bhfuil fachglan nó ga ann had tuig sin agus sé brut mór a hawn sin, sé bua a hawn sin cutio nam bheach. Agus son sin a bhí a tachirst le filmin, no programmen, amach as a hulle stú jónsachi a hakin, sé rut mór a hawn sin nam bheach. Agus sé rut loch mór a hawn, a bhí a sealtain go brut prísio a hawn sa Gaelic. Agus go bhfuil luchtjónsachi go bhfuil iad san ari chorman a bhí díoch cimil charing sin. Charing me sin sa bhíorla. Ach had ari chorman éile a bhí a clíntin na Gaelic agus an an dóin gomáidí frichte. Sé rút mór a hawn sin. An
dú imamstrach san na smó sin an dóchas go nachcrútan da léhéid a ha as a chiad dul amach as a rélig. Agus mar a bh héine grain ha néach gan na seannachas na féine agus rúíoch go chullin. Na rutan sin heid go ma berstoch a hauh drúoch fantasoch. Ach a bhfuilús muidechin an rúhéin, an do léhúhéin na rutan sin, a bhfuilús muidechin go bhfuil áte haun hasan sur na Gaelicas an rutan mar sin as an was a bhí is dúna go ma haidin bheach an bachor Gaelic a bhí mar a héad có amsíil. Á féimi Gaelic a bhí an telí. Dé do bheach áte na néachcan sin an sur na Gaelic héin, do rúna go bhfuil Gaelic.
Chanéin gur é achte go ma bearstoch a hawn gan Gaelic. Ha imig fachgo ichke son a holocali émas tú son skilachken, shaun skilachken, claiúin, a hulle stú, skia, claiú. Jarstis ik Gaelic gus jo skilach inche, jo neach inche, san doisje. Agus stocha nach bísin a brein sluggen o claiúin san la an jucho trich. Ach, sé had goma kutramach. Ja, na shaun skilachken agus nam bheachsa. Fémi a hulladunja go hadich na heikri. Fémi at a bhí a gjónsacha na skilachken ach geheen. Maar a jónsich sinja ans na stachtjen, Robin Hood. Agus skilachken a bheith Disney, a Brian Disney san dói achgasa. Ach, fémi na skilachken Gaelach, na neachken Gaelach a bhí ik a hulladunja, nam bheach, go hadich ik na heikri. Agus vín goma talichtje leorichin ure eichkin, an skrivig le skrivichen oka, aha, an saas an an sul fantasach, sul Comic-Con, had goma jolach na skilachken, na temichen, a holle kaal, a hansen sul-show, agus gan torst, go sul na Gaelic, agus kud Gaelic skilachken a skrivat heen.
True.
Vín goma talichtje sin levig. Kun checkers an bi. Gan jo na leorichin sin akkam gumi arstenach, ach bi. Agus, I mean, doch is gun noch tillig. Is tillig is... Go jeru, skrif me 3 novelen gurike show. Ach, gan je moneachken a haunte, she skilachken a bielarish a haunte, maar mach kadrun am ron. Agus Deirdre is an éhid. Agus, maar guma spórsel a vi gan skriva, agus tíirech a clich leis na fachglin agus cimara níú sealag. Cimara vis na scéalchan seo a cumal bio. Agus cimara níú sin le fachglin siimplí. Channé rút furasta a hawn ítar a cha cóirstagrim a bhí gan díanú agus cuiteoch betalam scéalachgan éile a scríbhag, scéalachgan ó mín. Well, chanít mí a thulacha, chan mé gí spoilers a thuirstú. Ach, betalam scéalach ecolach a scríbhag, le iach uisce a tín na sascas. Agus, ha bui vor ag bial aris ormsa. Agus ha mi farachgin go bheith scéalach scrífi mi novelin mar sin an san dói ac am hín. Cum a fascoilte do luchtúin sa chi agus. A mi dochas a simpli go leor gynna bhí a scríbhag néach caran lianapol. A fascoilte don luchtúin sa chi a bhí gan lévig gun strí. So hí sin plana a ha gan criú. Urinnen, bí mi a checkas classichen a staurig, agus ní sin an unluk de hiú YouTube, ach ní sin scéalach in cóla. Hat a jint mi scéalach a il arish haast, ach am is minnig a gre jofiach ga hauna sin kan checku, ní mi sin kan checku. Stal je me a bhí a mesk nan ólanach agus a bhí díoch a gáil tlach an sa Gaelic agus son na hola dún a bhí a farach gain go bhfuil at sarvachal an san dói ha frecar a chaibse agus butal barach a horst stiach gan na classichin akam bielarish agus na sean skilach gan inla ní mission. Ach díoch meervelach a bhí a goper le allenich falar vi an een show mar kanle agus a vi a farach géin díoch farach géin misneach a fas agus díoch ik dírig an ma dírig na seachcin bí sé bí acharach ag mór hoden. Bí acharach ag mór tín hoden.
Genus na station si go bhfuil chanédíach an alp an anésin as a Britain Vic sin marsút. Ha dúnne smuneachchéin ar a chanan mar rút fall lé. Föti dúnne vi tokol canan gunna vi noch san dúlachas, no vi noch is. Dit a bheith hé na huf sin na huf ha mi tuk sin gohfuú gin bheith gohfuil an dúlachas go mar cutramoch. Ma sin is sons gom bí wochjonsachí gebé dúnne gohfuil Gaelics an sealach no nach héil. Ma sin is sons gom bí dún togol an dúlachas aris, agus na déh sin chané dídoch le grammars agus fachgel ach leis a húle rút a ha a bha agus a víos Gaelic a gúan. Ki mar a bor an runúni vi gennu seo kist vik a
Wow, agus sé rút a hawn a bhí amach as a chuirsneach goteach agus a bhí is minic ar dúchas a hoá goteach skas nach géile hanamsa. Na bheach a mi go cultach rí Aragorn an an Lord of the Rings. Hanje elfa hawn ach bí mar charich ge. Agus na bheach can géile hanam ach ha mi an dochas go é Jo charich a hanam goibh se goteach.
Amen.
Agus ha karan dar a bhí minic sin mar Americanach. Ach ik an an sé rút prísel a hawn an dúchas agus sé rút go kutamach a hawn. Mar a thuirstú hen nu de brenestúri géal agus ha de gínse kis huket agus sé rút mór a hawn a sin ach gaan je goed commentaar houden, ja. Agus, kimmer a ní sin gan vorchuch. Sé keist ma mór a hauna sin kutjoch. Mar a simpler a varach oran agus, neoch gaha cool of oran. Kimmer a ní sin kial der luchtjonsachi agus kultur na Gaelic. An an dói ha freckerach agus jewing. Gaan ebert ma first a haun ach agus fémi tú kann go leor a vi giroch. Gaan toch nach el frekkerst akam giroch kisten eile ach. She Jo rut a haun agus minnig gegeris.
Well, sin nach Hannes an an Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy nach é. Rud ha kutrmoch an je an rekker sé je chéist tiast a helm.
Sure.
Na dune ví se Jonschen a Gaelic kuruts. Ha an doel gevel. Dicho joloch sa heit nur a wie se de chin hoeket. Dicho joloch sa heit dooloches nan geo. Ha an doel gembik ma garach waar is ko a helm nach. John Davaach go héle se gra.
Fim mé nach le vor gut choolach. Maar de saist ha gidach tochi agus de genu kéim agus kéim eile slie na Gaelic ach. Nimi mo jichel a vi bruin kusper en kulturach agus a vi a tokal kjal, gervik mar sin ach. An lucht tochi. Nam viach sé rit ma doelen noch a haun vi a tokal an kjal sin. Ounce Gaelic hen, severele, brini sin a hulaka. Ach, fémi sin gorishin, fémi sin videoin agus, pís an lévi a ha skimpi guljór don luchtjónsachi a vi a léver gun strí. Agus, sé commas a hauna sin, an I rut first a hauna sin a vi a genu stu mar seo. Ach, mar is sé Outlander an kjal a hachke rí sé Gaelic agus rí kultur na Gaelic agus sé, sé táise hi an.
Och an nas misel.
Gun check it.
Agus ha Gaelic ha fisam gevel gumbi kuja gunni tocht droch kliúd o Outlander agus ransa je hai fast nas mises a reis an stré. Ach a hiad da season ha ba mi fadach gun va Gaelic an va prokerst sa burren ne dunig nach el Gaelic. Agus kujoch an dois a wake vi tocht immeruk is kinien agus jachkrieg na geeltach so mar sin va chunne mi fatten as missen a chut agus vai soliet go roiet kuj ransach in jachkriel a jenu so me ha dune chin hoeke mis ha ujach an Outlander a mis mon je geen oorheid se bunnet ma gele ha schon vi tokolet agus da is
Good job. Stoch a good stoch a good chimply a haun, be at the tokal, fachkon an a Gaelic, be at the Gjonsa na Gaelic, agus kutjoch be at the levig a goed heen, se gaan an ach geheen, se hiet chendach. Agus sé sin an dói a jev at an stu ha ho kutrmal, gus ho prísio, get nach na fachkon Gaelic ach son an fiction. Haast, B, unla B. Ach, stoch a gevel fame aan primer. Kultur na Gaelic. Maar a simple na lorichin ik Michael Newton. She gorishin uavasach ma hante. Va mi aan een koersichin a leis na vai ik al hai nu Francie Xavier, agus jonsich mi. Agus sé fear kultur a haun. Agus Hadur me shin speaking their language. Yeah, hadur me an yehich gorishin ela.
True.
Yeah, they should enjoy vacuum I guess. But when a class in Gaelic acum at hierdoch na shar va nas rishel avansa gasken ro ik in contact.
Ifuse na macha se hiet tushin riochvilentes. Is usen en hami fadachen gewil döne stat es kas gewil ha kiel a falla vaun. Ha ider torsachug. Ha de jons fachkel. So norshin dele, Giannachim, agus caution am idionish. Okay, ha evin. Okay, junsich mi begen Gaelic. Ha root down a year son mar a hústú had dorshane fosklug agus how mar hitches ma kujik ha strier son a Gaelic kujoch. Am mir sons kum mi dunne smunjechin. Sul. Tjette vel an dorish.
Sure.
Ha farachken nach bitune. Ha tollische gelaurle fachkel noch a agus ui. Ach rutekin a igus an bides munjechin. Ha mi wonder gut te wille. Agus iet a dod an nachim, stan orshin biet tidoch bryn Gaelic ar podcast e chod agin isak.
Aye. Femi shin ulle over.
Oh, jidoch.
Femi. Agus, Femi shin ulle Joe over. A vier sli in a Gaelic. She rut gema well an an doi do hutch. She rut gema njonach a haun agus toch in a bishin naar millionaires. Aye, Femi shin Joe over a ha naar krier an is minich. Aye, ganse bena skillach gonna va gam hokal nur a gas en raad gema ropoch agus darf. Aye, ach Femi shin kjal a hokal. Kjal some bi do ritsen bi aan een sul na Gaelic. Agus Femi shin Joe Rut risha vi Gino kjal. Agus leisha shin nam viach, bi ar mishniach stocha a lakach vo am go amafas kar an lak agus na slachere ach bi hast akin.
True.
Från Holland.
True.
Femi shin Joe over. Jay en töver a vacket så här.
Oh well, she sanna savritin vika ham heen vo hús. Smarsinje junsich mi an kanan am he an doshoch retenish. Agus va mir schon a vidal na stunje. A savritin vik hanel mar heret kelchish isaket Celtic studies. Khaner shinaken. She jidoch retenish. Agus va mi smonjechin wala khami son vigon so na sarshinje. Va mir son vi tukshin je an deva haken le kumerish agus alpenich agus den machine. Smarsinje ralaf mi. Es gas nach roi aken es avrit in weeks ralaf mi a rawope. Agus rudig mi. Kina haches agus hog mi Gaelic, hog mi Gaelic an ich agus is ek het hou crew goed. Gaan dit jidoch doorlogus lut mas nou crew goed Dave social tali deun. Hou jidoch kan je goed karretjen is ruten machine is. An orshin hou geur keze a visachen is moet je geen oef. Hij de wie blian an is.
Sheikh. Oh, heet ne bledig en chach het hollo.
Oh, ha vis. Vis. Oh, a vis a Christi. Ha roet ha mis monje geen ha gemeenschinnig skaskoro an an awop er geel toch. Ach wou kutjoch an awop nuwe. Agus Shean harumiri van awop nuwe. Van mi vadag kan gachturus a geunig mile kutjekin a awop nuwe. Van mi vadag kan groeit kan ma dwoe. Bis an doorlogus. Ak ma kutrum raif, maar gum bi an kinjuk, an finje, maar gum bi ko asavat.
Oh, aye.
Agus an nalope ha prut be konspetjoch uzenen. A huv an gifere der geil awope nu agus geu na halope. Ti von ich heen an de von rutek in machine an. Gifere ha shoot no. Heit go faskere gele, a geveli het go fask zien dat je aan haal.
Sherry, nam viach kadjifer moor etter. Auran alpa nuag haro ui ek holidunya Gaelic no kultur na Gaelic. Hatorena kron ora icher. Auran alpa, va chono garam gano dunya auna va smeintje kumpurin in Gaelic basain. I guess she Gaelic. Carsona how gieri roots and be machine vi tachicht. Auran alpa nuag mahadunya koma. Giroch koma, okay, kerskelior. She root luch voor de hound dogunie. Als een kerskelior. Negeel aan alapanuag. I go ancient ja. Kim er niet meer Gema Jonach. Gema Jonach. I guess nam viacht had de vader gewel. Kjan later ettere. I guess wel kjan later achke ri jacht in a skide. I guess muintje vala. I guess rische Gaelic heen. I guess she root uavasach uach voor eentje. Had door een kron some be. Ure ietsje. I guess wij van chonogaram. I guess menig van jou how doen je maar. I guess could je ook maar hoorst toe. Be het dus as menig Dave, had Dave in gemaakt kutemach. I guess. Hier geest je weke holodunia kodaher. I guess rekker me wel gaan jullie jou ver. Gedaan je ook de hitcher. Maar die er gewoon eentje nog. I guess naar wijsach gunro uiaket Gaelic. Waar die er gewoon bla rust. I guess gewoon kutjachal. Wat doen je hele blaas kutjachal. Je had toch hakken me riev dunia en alle benoeg of voer. I guess groom. Gonse ke you. Had Joesachke guri root pre-show. Root pre-shows luachvo.
I mean, yep, I think we're taking it to a close there. So there's a few wee things to wrap up. I ran a poll with our audience. You guys can get to vote on this. So the question asked our audience, what is the first Gaelic word that made you wonder if your keyboard was lying to you? So is it och, ha, gema, or falcha?
My keyboard was lying. I'm not sure I actually understand the question.
Was it autocorrect? We think it was autocorrect and it was a Gaelic word.
Yeah. Or like when you actually wrote it out, you thought, no, that can't be it. It's like a pronunciation. That's what it's asking. So it's och, ha, gema, or falcha. They voted already. There's been quite a few votes came in for it. So you guys get to vote on this as well. You could clinch it.
I'm not sure. I never thought of it.
Right?
Maybe ha. That's a very common one.
Actually, nobody voted. Falcha was the winner.
Really?
Yes.
There you go.
I think maybe because I'm a language nerd, for me, I can't think of Gaelic spelling. For me, Gaelic spelling makes so much sense that I'm never confused by it. But I can understand that falcher might be, for people who haven't learned the nitty-gritties of how it works, it might actually be a very confusing word.
Yeah. And it's customary now, we end with a few silly quickfire questions, Jason. Are you ready?
Bring it on.
Right, number one. If a single Gaelic noun could be banned forever purely because you think it sounds funny, which one would it be?
Plumbish.
Found?
I'm not ready for these questions.
That's a good thing with quickfire. Right, so you're about to go on stage. Do you feel more nervous about pronouncing a cluster of 5 consonants or accidentally wearing an non-tartan kilt?
I might be worried about the kilt way more.
Consonants for me. Yeah.
Oh, consonant, all right. All right, this one's more directed towards Jason. How many times a week do you accidentally say a Gaelic phrase to a non-Gaelic speaking American?
Oh, constantly, every day. Multiple times a day. Oh, yeah.
Okay, number 4. If Scottish Gaelic were a dance move, what would it be called?
Smashing.
Oroyali.
There's been two. There's the Lanishan lean or the lingual lurch were two. That's
So Lilician lean is quite nice.
Oh, that's a good one.
You got any? Now that I've kind of given you any ones you could come up with yourself.
Slenderization slide.
Oh yes.
I like the
come
Lanishan
on.
one best though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're looking at
Yeah,
you
the
now,
Lilician
Harsh.
lean
You've
is
got
a very good one. Yeah, can't top
Hey.
that.
You can't top that. All right. Okay, so our last quick fire. Do you believe that anyone who truly masters all of the Gaelic dialects is actually a witch or wizard?
All the dialects.
Yeah.
You're the most powerful wizard in the world for sure for that.
They definitely know the evil eye averting curse or spell that Froth learned.
Yeah.
They definitely have things like that up their sleeve.
Yeah, all the dialects, that's. But then, like, whoever masters all the English dialects is a
Yeah.
wizard.
Holy moly.
Oh,
Good luck with
There's a
that.
guy who can go from Cockney to Mississippi. I respect that.
Wow. Yeah.
at every stop along the way is just would be even more impressive.
Aye.
All right, so that brings us to an end. Jason, thank you so much. It's been fascinating. Great to have you on. And if people want to find you and reach out to you, where can they find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Gaelic with Jason, and then also my website, gaelicwithjason.com, where I have courses and audiobooks for the novel I've written. Lots of good stuff that'll really help you deepen your Gaelic and get deep into the culture too.
Oh,
Gonna mark it,
fantastic.
Jason.
More than
And-
action.
Oh, what a time, Jason. It's been great having you on. And, well, we're taking a little break from recording. And when we're back, bounce us with us again. And for once, it's not language. We're going to be talking Studio Ghibli.
Oh, cool.
We've got
Ooh, I see
Raina
that one.
Dennison, who's done academic papers on Studio Ghibli she's University of Nottingham, I want to say. I've probably gotten that wrong. So apologies. And then after that, it is going to be language because we're talking about 1670 in the next show. That's a Polish comedy that we've been talking about quite a lot. So plenty to look forward to, and enjoy Ocon this weekend if you're watching this. We'll see you there. And thank you very much, Jason, and thank you everyone for watching.
Chaque
Bye.
fois j'ouvre un rôle ma
Wow.
edge,
Thank you.
c'est vocal. Uw gek weer pak edge, nooit je naam. Komt je ram van edge, kanku, hoko we. Kab dat nugele de pok, doet van deracho. Kom stak uw gek weer de oetskoe. Cha, 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 cha. Oh, my mate charge will have a Klingon poo. Cha, 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 cha. Oh, well it's called the shoe edge, hair too. Cha, 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 cha. Oh, it's called kustak chiba chok page poo. Ta uw gek de kluta edge, chiba poo. Shaka wedge edge, to shoe roop. Yay. Goed to ram van edge, kaku, hoko gwe. Kap dat mu legge de pok, doe zwam. De racho, uw het stak voor my edge hogwitch, de kaku. Dag, jij, de chapku. Rob het stak uw gek with de oetskoe. Ja. My man charge will have a Klingon poo. Well, it's called the shoe edge, hair too. It's called kustak chiba chok bench poo. Whoa, that food for dev ruku. Tibach cha, dara de rich crew, et ich moket crew, oh. Tibach cha, I did chop, did ich nach you rick lich nu, oh. Cha, dich glaub dak Georgia, which dude. Dich dak rat shuv, we beku, et tara, jit club. Cha, cha cha Chodech la evecha bechod Jich a Chod vel jich be aran vol chod vet jich chai Dach doet we der roep koe Tebach cha 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 ma virich koe et jich boket koe oh oh Tebach cha 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 jij ai bitcha dit jich nach u gik lich nu oh oh Tebach cha 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 oh oh Tebach cha cha cha